Hello and welcome to another episode of Atomic Vinyl Reviews. My name's Jacob and today I'm doing a quick little review of the Lost World Jurassic Park. So I've decided to do a little marathon of the Jurassic Park / World movies. I started off, of course, with the original last time, which I basically just went on a rant about how much I loved because that film is just top tier awesome. However, this one was one of those movies which I was kind of not sure what to expect on a return viewing because I hadn't seen a lot of these films in a long time, and I remember just generally being kind of mixed on this film growing up. On return viewing, I would say that I felt about the same. This film is definitely an awesome film. There's a lot that I like about it, and it feels like a very classic Jurassic Park movie. However, compared on a viewing between the first one, there's just something that's a little bit lacking. The first one, I thought it's like a very snappy, funny, very tightly written movie where everything happens at a really good pace. A lot happens, there's a good pace to it, all the characters are just on fire, everything's just firing on all cylinders. And it's actually a really simple plot, but it's just the way you go through it and experience it is just such a joy. Such a really elegantly made movie. This one, though it's a lot of the same people coming back, of course, it's directed by Steven Spielberg and all that good stuff. Despite that, I feel that this movie feels a little bit more convoluted. The plot is a little bit more weird, complicated to it. It's still fairly simple, but compared to the first one, it's just a little bit more out there. I found that a lot of the characters in this one were far less interesting and had far less chemistry than the cast of the original film. Everyone in that first film is just so perfectly cast, and they just work so well off each other. And there's that like really interesting like intellectual dialogue in there, which I didn't really mention enough of in my first review, but just about that subtle message of like, is this what we should be doing? And especially a lot of that message is carried through with Ian Malcolm's character, which returns here. So it was kind of weird to see that I really didn't feel like he had much chemistry with any of the other characters here. It was like he was sort of the straight man or the pessimist, while everyone else around him was also just kind of a straight man and or like just out there being a bit crazy, like Sarah or whatnot. So it just was lacking in that regard a little bit. What I will say that I really loved, because I should go into that for a little bit, is I love the intro with the little comfies and just the little girl and that whole scene. That's a really great intro to kind of draw you into this movie. And then there's that marvelous transition, where there's the mother of the little girl starts screaming, and it just transitions to Jeff Goldblum doing the big yawn in front of that like advert on on the subway station. You still like, it's this bizarre transition because he's still standing in front of like palm trees, and then it kind of zooms out and you see it's actually an advert, and like it's a great just cinematic moment. And there's a lot of stuff in this film that's just great in that regard. The whole thing with the two T-Rexes is marvelous. They're done really well. Just everything about the T-Rexes I really love. The T-Rex couple, their care for the young, how like just vicious they are. They have a kill count, which is something which I really wish they would actually have done a little bit more in the future Jurassic World films, because they really kind of, they had the most classic T-Rex in all of cinema history to play with. They had Rexy to play with in those Jurassic World films, and they kind of just made her like a very tame anti-hero, which doesn't really come across as much of a threat, and they just kind of roll her out when the plot demands it. And you know what? I still love seeing her in those movies, but she damn well should have eaten a few people while she was at it, just to show that she still has some bite to her, you know what I mean? Which they didn't really do in those films, but it was great to see that the Rexes in this film, they did actually have some bite to them. I really love the scene at the end of the movie. Of course, we got the Rex rampaging through San Diego. That was really cool. Just seeing it wandering the suburbs, I think that was probably my favorite bit. Just so casually, because it's just a surreal image and something that really makes this film stand out. The visual effects in this, it's still brilliant and still stands up really well, but compared to the first film where I felt like they were really restrained in that film. They used the special effects only when they really had to use CGI, for example, and of course there's the fantastic animatronic work in that film which carries over to this film. And I feel like the effects are of the same quality, however they were much more ambitious with them, showing large herds of dinosaurs quite a lot. And it didn't feel as realistic as that first film, where like that one holds up so well today that in this film, I think it still holds up much better than probably any other film of its time, but it's still not quite at the same level as that first film. I feel like there was a bit more of that restraint that really benefited that first film. It was also really nice to actually see Richard Attenborough back as John Hammond, because he's, a fan favorite character. His scene was great in this film as well. But again, as far as the main cast goes, the only person I really cared about was Jeff Goldblum's character. So Ian Malcolm, I guess his daughter to a lesser extent, and then maybe that like hunter guy from the bad guys group. Not Muldoon, he was in the first film. I don't remember his name. I remembered it up until like 5 minutes ago when I started filming this. But unfortunately, stuff like that always happens to happen. But you guys know the one I mean, the like bald guy who's out there wanting to hunt a bull Rex. So I liked him because he seemed to be the only one like thinking straight out of a lot of the people as well. Because there was a lot of people who made stupid decisions in this movie as well, and it's just one of those things. It's hard to really care about those people in one of these movies. Overall, I'd give this movie a nice solid recommend. It's a classic Jurassic Park movie. It feels so much more like Jurassic Park than any of the Jurassic World films, which I enjoy them for what they are, but they just feel so plastic and so manufactured, and like just they had some cool things in them, but they just, I don't know, they just feel really different. There's a very different vibe to those films, and they don't really mesh with the feeling of the original 3 Jurassic Park films, which have a lot to do with, I guess, the way that they're all on the island. Of course, they all have a similar way of the effects being made. They're made in a similar time, so they do kind of have this really consistent feel to them, where it like really feels like this universe is very tactile and real. Whereas I felt quite a bit of disconnect with the Jurassic World films, even though I enjoy a lot of them to a certain extent, and some elements of them more than some elements of this film, but we'll get to that later on. I'm actually not really sure what more to say about this film. There's definitely a lot more that I probably could dig into, but just on the surface of just having casually rewatched it recently, that's kind of my assessment. And that's kind of what I'm really hoping this marathon to be, just informal reviews, just kind of giving my loose thoughts about the viewing experience. And the next video we'll come to is, of course, Jurassic Park 3, which this one's going to be really interesting, because if I wasn't sure what to expect with The Lost World, this one I'm not sure what to expect even more, because this one has just been slated again and again as the worst film of the whole franchise. In my current opinion, that would be the second Jurassic World film. Jurassic World... Fuck, I don't even remember what it's called. You know the one where it ends in the mansion and the auction, and like they have that little clone girl, which again, there's definitely stuff I really like about that movie as well. We'll get to that. But for now, Jurassic Park 3, it's been slated as the worst. I remember really loving it when I was a kid. Every time I think back to that film, I don't see anything particularly negative. A lot of people say like the characters are stupid and unlikable and all that stuff, but I had mostly the same vibe with this film as well, and a lot of people really love this film, and they consistently rank it higher than the third film. Whereas there are elements of the third film that I remember really loving, like the Spinosaurus, even though I think it's stupid of them to try and one-up the T-Rex, which is just like a dumb concept, like similar to how they keep doing in the Predator series, where they keep making like bigger and more CGI and more dumb-looking Predators to try and be more awesome or badass than the original one, when really people just really love that original one and no one gives a shitty caca about any of these new Predators. They kind of tried to do that with Jurassic Park 3 with the Spinosaurus. Difference is, I actually really like the Spinosaurus as its own thing. I don't like that they tried to, make it seem more cool and badass than the T-Rex. I think that was just a stupid thing to do from the get-go. As its own monster, it was really cool in that film. The effects are marvelous from what I remember on that. The raptors are really cool. The environment's really cool on the island. The conspiracy stuff about like them illegally cloning even more dinosaurs. That was really cool from what I remember. And of course the Turdon cage at the end of the creepy flying prehistoric reptiles. Those massive things. That was really, really sweet as well from what I remember. Just really gave the film a unique feel. Even though there were some really stupid things in that film, like them showing that Alan and Ellie broke up and all that sort of stuff. And the parents of the kid that's lost on the island being kind of annoying and not really super interesting characters or anything like that. Like, yeah, that's all a given. And some of the things being a little silly and over the top. But I still remember really enjoying that film for what it was. But again, I have not watched pretty much any of these movies in a long time. These are just movies that I've just like always been like, yeah, these are like movies that I cherish and love, the Jurassic Park movies, but for whatever reason, I just haven't got around to rewatching them in a number of years. So, I'm gonna get to that one next. But till then, peace out guys, may all your vinyl be irradiated vinyl. Over and out. Bye.